Hey, thank you, Buffalo, for taking Von Miller. Thank you. This is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the January 22nd, 2024 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions, call Kistler Law at 661 206 6990. That's Kistler Law at 661 206 6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word. KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair, having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. All right. So thank you, Buffalo, for taking Von Miller off our hands. Preventing the Rams. Rams wouldn't have given him a 6-year contract, but thank you, Vaughn, for what you did for us. But thank you. We've parted ways. Thank you after what I saw yesterday. But also, you're watching this football games this weekend, and it's like the Green Bay Packers are why we can't have nice things as Ram fans, right? You had it, Green Bay. You had you had Frisco on the ropes. You had them. In your hands was the ability to slay the bad guys, and they didn't look good. I didn't break too much in my office, just a couple of things. But see, this is why we can't have nice things, right? And if you think the Rams have kicking problems, well, everyone was so afraid a Ram kicker was going to cost them in a big game. Well, instead, it was a Green Bay kicker that cost them, as well as Buffalo, right? But it was a good weekend. I was kind of the kiss of death. Had a feeling about Houston, all wrong. I was rooting for Buffalo. Missed on that one. I did take Detroit over Tampa, but I had the Packers over Green Bay, and I was this close, right? This close. And then Jordan Love decided to look like Brett Favre. But Packers are in good shape going forward. I don't think Frisco is. But we'll get into all this stuff as we go down. I want to get into some Ram stuff first. We'll go around the MVL and other places. We'll do a little draft look as far as needs on the back half of the show. Recap a few of those games that were played over the weekend, and then look at Rams history. Pretty some significant stuff happened on this day, January 22nd and January 23rd. So let's get this ball rolling. A little bit of draft talk about the Rams. Has the Rams moved deeper into their off season, right? Everything's kind of slowed down a little bit. Even our interactions have slowed down a little bit. But like I said, we're going to be here all the way through. Everyone's excited. The Rams only have a 19th round pick. 19th round. They have a 19th overall pick this year, and so they're in the first round. They've only picked at 19 overall 5 times in their entire history, right? 3 times before the Super Bowl era, right? They drafted 19th overall, and that meant they got a second round pick because there was only 10 to 12 teams in the league, right? Players like Jay McDowell out of Washington. He was a tackle. He never played for the Rams. That was in 1941, and World War II had started. And by the time he came back from World War II, he was playing for the Eagles. Rams had a defensive halfback named Corky Taylor out of Kansas State in 1955. He only played 2 years. The Rams drafted a cornerback who played some wide receiver for the team named Clendon Thomas out of Oklahoma, and that was in 1958. And he was traded to the Steelers in 1962 for linebacker Mike Henry, the actor who became the actor, played at USC. I think we mentioned this a few weeks ago, but that's how the Rams acquired Mike Henry. But in the Super Bowl era, the common draft era, beginning in 1966, thus called the modern era, the Rams have only drafted at 19 overall twice, and with mixed results. In 1979, the Rams drafted George Andrews, Nebraska, and he was a really underrated performer who rose as a starter in those dip years of 1981 and 82 when the Rams didn't make the playoffs. He was drafted in 79, was on the Super Bowl team, was on the special teams there, and he became a starter halfway through the 1980 season when Bob Brzezinski walked out and left the Rams. And Andrews was a starter there on out. And when John Robinson came, they instituted the 3-4 defense. He was on the edge there. Well, they didn't call it the edge in those days. He was just an outside linebacker. 80 games, 58 starts, had 12 and a half sacks. But in the middle of his career year in 1984, he had 6.5 sacks. Bill Bain called him the White Lawrence Taylor. It looked like his career was going to take off. He ran a 4.7 40. So it was his year in 1984, and then he ripped up his knee. And then he ripped up the same knee during his comeback. And then when he came back after that, he ripped up the other knee. And after a brief experiment in 1986 as an inside linebacker, he was forced to retire. And it was a real bummer. But he was a good player that is forgotten, and he just didn't have his moment, right? He just didn't have his moment. I always felt because he wore number 52, he had a little bit of bad luck. I always thought 52 was a bad luck number for the Rams for the most part. Rick Kay was another guy that wore 52, tore up his knee. Of course, Steve Busick, who I really liked at USC, he had a bad knee. Terrell Lewis was a bust. We got Clay Matthews after he was pretty much done. And Alec Ogletree was all right. But the number 52 for the Rams is saved because it was Mike Jones's number. And I shouldn't have to tell you who Mike Jones is. So George Andrews was the 19th overall pick in the 1975 draft. But in the 2005 draft, and we're going to dive deeper here, the Rams drafted Alex Barron out of Florida State, 19th overall. And if you're a Ram fan, you realize bad isn't even a good enough word to describe how awful Alex Barron was. Forget about the production of blocking and pass protection, which he was horrible at. Let's just talk about his penalties and compare him to, say, Rob Havenstein. Havenstein has played 9 seasons with the Rams, okay? He was drafted 57th overall in 2015, for the record. He's been a starter the whole time. 130 games. He's been hit with 35 penalties, okay? That's accepted penalties. If the penalty's not accepted, we're not going to penalize the player for that. 35 accepted penalties in 130 games. That works out to about 4 penalties a year. Maybe a false start, a couple of holding calls, right? And some cheap ones that you get, like the one called on him in Detroit a week ago. But I don't want to digress. Alex Barron, taken 19th overall, physical specimen. He played 5 seasons with the Rams, appeared in 76 games, had 74 starts, and he was hit with and accepted 63 penalties. 63. That's about 12 times a year. That's literally every game he's getting hit with a holding call or getting hit with a false start or something. He was brutal. He was just horrible. And he was eventually traded to Dallas for a failed linebacker named Bobby Carpenter. I think some of you might remember him. But in just 3 or 4 games with Dallas, Barron was hit with another 3 flags. He was brutal. He was bad. And, maybe it was a mental block or whatever, but he just couldn't get it together. And he highlights, again, something to think about, right? I'm for drafting linemen every year. And I think it's because you just don't know if these guys are going to hit or miss, right? Everyone's all talking about Logan Bruss right now being a bust. And up to this point, 2 years in, hasn't played a snap of NFL football. Yeah, and they're talking about maybe he's a tackle now. No one knows about Logan Bruss. We just know he ain't playing. And if he ain't playing, right, we know what that means. But I wanted to break this down. Since the 1990s, these are the guys the Rams have drafted in the first round. 1994, they drafted Auburn's Wayne Gandy. He was 15th overall last year in LA, and he ended up being a 13-year NFL starter. Didn't make any Pro Bowls or anything, but he was a steady starter for the Rams. Went as a free agent to the Steelers, and then finished with the Saints and had a brief cup of coffee with the Falcons. But 13 years, you wouldn't call him a bust. If he was almost a Rob Havenstein type, right? I think Havenstein's better, but that's the kind of player Gandy was. All right, 15th overall. You could think about who you could have drafted, but it wasn't a bad deal. And the Rams were a bad team then. In 1997, they struck gold, of course. First overall pick, Orlando Pace, Ohio State. He's a Hall of Famer. All right, we won't stop. We'll just stop right there. That's great. But since then, these are the players the Rams have drafted to play tackle in the top 100. Okay, we're talking first 100 players, whether it's first round, second round, late in the third round. These are the players the Rams have drafted in the top 100 after drafting Orlando Pace in 1997. And you tell me how well they've done. John St. Clair was drafted 41st overall in the second round. You know who John St. Clair is? Yeah, the world doesn't know. Alex Barron, we talked about. John Greco in 2008. Jason Smith was drafted in the first round, second overall, and he was supposed to be the heir apparent to Orlando Pace. Jason Smith lasted 2 seasons. In 2010, at number 33, the Rams drafted Roger Saffold, but Saffold really worked out to being a guard. He wasn't a tackle. In 2014, that great Aaron Donald draft, the guy they drafted before him, second overall, another second round tackle. The Rams drafted Greg Robinson, and I think he's currently in a Texas correctional place. He was awful. I don't even know. He might have been worse than Alex Barron. Alex Barron lasted 5 years. 2015, they drafted Havenstein, a hit. 2015, they also drafted Jamon Brown. Remember Jamon Brown? They played him at tackle, they played him at guard, and then they packed his bags and let him go during the 2018 season. In 2018, they drafted Joseph Noteboom, number 89 overall. And worst you could say is mixed results, but he's hardly the starter, right? I like Joe Noteboom. I don't like giving him 20 rocks a year, but he clearly lost his job to an undrafted free agent named Alaric Jackson out of Iowa. And then, of course, a name I'm loath to mention was Bobby Evans. Bobby Evans in the 2019 draft was drafted 97th overall, I believe out of Oklahoma. And they moved him at tackle, at guard, tackle. They tried everything to get something out of Bobby Evans, and Bobby Evans was atrocious. And so that's roughly 10 players drafted since taking Orlando Pace. And literally the Rams have only hit on one, Rob Havenstein, at tackle. And so that's how hard it is sometimes to find that right guy. And it's not like the Rams haven't spent capital before. Just something to think about as we go into the offseason. If Alaric Jackson is giving you what you want, do we move off of him? He's good enough. Is he great? Is he Whitworth? No, right? He's not Doug France, right? He's not Orlando Pace. But I think the Rams have shown you can win with him. And then again, if you roll the dice, what's going to happen? Because you've seen what the Rams have done here. John St. Clair, John Greco, Jason Smith, Greg Robinson, Jamon Brown, Bobby Evans. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Around the NFL and other places, good for Brad Holmes, good for Dan Campbell, good for Jared Goff. And I do think Detroit can beat Frisco. Detroit's got a lot of weapons. And I think, again, every time this team wins, as young as it is, they've got the veteran quarterback, but every time they win, their confidence goes up. So if they get punched in the nose to start the game in Frisco next week, you can't just write them off, right? They know how to overcome adversity because the Buccaneers weren't going away. They just would not. Well, the Rams didn't go away either in the face of that massive crowd and that noise, and neither did the Buccaneers. And when it looked like Detroit was going to put them away, they just couldn't. And God bless Baker Mayfield, right? Baker Mayfield. Is he a foxhole guy or what, right? I didn't think anything about Baker Mayfield until he came to the Rams and you saw what he did. And it was about him getting with the right coach. And then he goes to Tampa, takes the modest contract, and he takes them to the playoffs. It's fun to see a young man grow up and see his leadership match his talent, right? You notice that when he maybe wasn't perfect, he took the heat. You see him talking to his receivers, and you see his receivers receiving what he has to say. And so, yeah, I was happy for Baker Mayfield, and Tampa needs to sign him. They need to figure out a way to keep him and and Mike Evans together. They just do. They've got some talent there. It's really interesting when you look at some of these teams. The NFC, you look at Tampa Bay, I think they're on an upswing. You look at Packers, definitely. They're on an upswing. There's some teams here that you kind of wanted. I didn't want to think about them for a few years, and now we're going to be forced to think about them. One recedes, Minnesota, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Green Bay rise to the occasion. Real interesting stuff there. Number two, that Bills Chiefs game was great. Patrick Mahomes probably has the cleanest postseason jersey in NFL history, right? It's like he's living out MC Hammer. You can't touch this, right? And if you can't get Patrick Mahomes down, if you can't hit him even when you're blitzing, you're done. And that's what the Bills are. I felt like the Bills did everything they could, and all of a sudden no one was there. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis didn't play. I like the Bills tight ends. I think they need another running back, and always draft offensive linemen. But I think they need a receiver, and wait till you hear about how much they're paying Stephon Diggs going forward. And if I'm Josh Allen, I'm thinking I need some help. That was bad because it was all on Josh Allen. And wasn't he amazing? The touchdown throw to Shakir, that was outstanding. I think it was a physical game, and I do think the Chiefs have a chance against Baltimore, but I am leaning Baltimore. Last ad, Bills. When you think about the Rams' kicking woes this year, I'm going to ask you this. Consider that the Bills are paying Tyler Bass 5.1 rocks per year to miss the kick that he missed on Sunday night. Think about that. At least when Luke Haversick or Brett Maher missed the kick that cost us a game, at least it was just they're making a veteran's minimum, right? Or a minimum salary where they're paying 5 rocks. They said, here, Tyler Bass, here's $5 million to crush us again. And they were crushed. Although, I don't know, the way that thing, man, I've seen Fernando throw screwballs that looked something like Tyler Bass's kick last night. Maybe the wind took it. I don't know, but it was a crusher for the Bills. And they blew it. Yeah, I didn't like the punt play either. If you're going to get 5 yards, leave Josh Allen on the field. Watching that Frisco 49er game, I was getting hot because I thought this is great. Everything's going to be great. The world's going to be nice if we could just knock Frisco out. I want the Lions to win the whole thing. I was kind of rooting for Buffalo after the Lions. I'm good with the Ravens winning. I'm feel a little swift-boated about the Chiefs. I'm not too thrilled about them these days. It's the only time it's funny. Last night watching that Bills Chiefs game, I've always rooted for the Chiefs. I've always kind of liked the Chiefs. But man, I just think I didn't like Jason Kelce being up there in the booth doing the shirt thing, and then you got not Brittany Mahomes. I can't talk about her; she's the quarterback's wife. But Taylor Swift out there, I don't know. It just becomes a clown show after a while. I'm sick of the Chiefs, and I never thought I'd say that because I've always rooted for the Chiefs. But I'm sick of the shtick, and I hope Baltimore crushes them. But I'm watching the Packers and the 49ers. And I'm thinking if we get the 49ers out, this is just going to be a great final 3 weeks of the season. And Jordan Love was great, right? As you're watching him, you just see this guy is really cool. He is just a cool customer. And you get the feeling you're seeing the birth of another superstar in Green Bay, right? And there are times he looks like Aaron Rodgers, but without the accuracy. One thing you can say about Aaron Rodgers, he was never inaccurate, right? And there was a couple times last night or the other night that Love just looked a little inaccurate, but the way he moves, he doesn't ever get flustered or show that he's flustered. And then there's times he gambles and he's reckless and he looks like Brett Favre. And that last play, when he threw that last interception that Dre Greenlaw picked off, didn't you think he looked like Brett Favre there? And this is why I say this to loyal RamView listener, Tim Burns. This is why I soured on Brett Favre. He never grew out of being that reckless guy. He was always going to, think too much of his arm and try to do too much and throw that big pick. And that's why I like Brett Favre, but I'm not a huge Brett Favre fan. And the thing about the Packers right now is they just got to hope as they give Jordan Love their contract, right? And whatever that contract's going to be, They just got to hope that he stays on a progression where he continues to develop. And but they found him, right? I feel for Packer fans. Growing up in the 70s, they're living through Scott Hunter, Jerry Taggy, David Whitehurst, Randy Wright, Blair Keel, Anthony Dilwig up to the 90s. They had a little bit there. Loved Lynn Dickey. Don Mikowski had a nice flash in the pan there in 89. But literally since 1992, that's 32 NFL seasons. They've gone Favre, Rodgers, and now Love. And I do believe Love is the real deal. I don't know what you guys think, but I do believe Love is the real deal. The Ravens, Houston, I thought Houston had a chance, but really it was just rust. It was just rust, and I was completely wrong on that. And I stopped believing Houston was going to upset them when I saw John Harbaugh's demeanor being interviewed coming out of halftime. And it was nothing about what he said. It was just how he said it. His team's tied 10-10. They should have been down 13-10. And when he gets interviewed, he's loose. He's relaxed. And then, of course, we saw the 34-10 outcome. I think in that second half, the Texans' youthful high began to wane. But they will be a power in the AFC, right? And it only took 22 seasons for Houston to find its real quarterback, right? Deshaun Watson is starting to look more and more like fool's gold right now. And so good for Houston, because I think they're a team, again, going forward. Coaching carousel, nothing really new there. We know Antonio Pierce got the job in Las Vegas, and we're waiting for some other shoes to drop. Although it seems like Philly will hold on to Nick Sirianni. Aside, their DC for half the season's gone. Matt Patricia's going to be gone, and so they're going to be looking for some new coordinators there in Philly. Just stuff to think about. All right, let's see here. Okay. I'm Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years. Now I do RamView, and I'm blessed to do that thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law. I also write books, and so I do this. I write books, and it sustains me in my day job. I am a pastor at a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Naz. You can see us right here on YouTube at our Burbank Faith virtual channel, as well as other places around social media. My books can be found on Amazon. Just type in joeterosian.com. I appreciate the support. I know we've gotten a little help over the last few weeks, because I see my numbers have ticked up a little bit. And I love it, and I so appreciate it, and I thank you for your support. I do have a third football book. It's called Game Day in the Ram Cave. It's a novel about friends watching a Ram game, and I had that book finished in December. We were hoping to get the edits done, but that's when my wife had her accident, and so it kind of put things on the back burner, and so we're working on those edits now to get us further down the road, and hopefully, I'm hoping within a month, maybe a little bit more, maybe 5 weeks to get that book out. So thank you for your support. Please follow us on Spotify, and we want to pick our numbers up there. And just a reminder, we will be here as of right now, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 days a week throughout the season, off season. Nothing's going to change for us. We're going to do the off season. We're going to do the free agency period, the draft. It's a lot of fun to do this period because you have to be a little more creative, and you're just talking about Rams history, what they've done in the draft and through free agency, who needs to come, who needs to stay, who needs to go, who needs to be extended. So it's good stuff. So thank you so much for clicking on and supporting. All right, let's look at some questions. Bill, what is it with the Bills and missing field goals in the playoffs? I don't know, man. People will say, don't get in that position. But the Scott Norwood one had a little bit of drama to it, right? You weren't quite sure, but literally that Tyler Bass kick, it was almost like, forgive me if this sounds blasphemous, but the hand of God came and just pushed it off to the side, man, because that thing just went, whoa. And you knew, right? You knew right away, oh, that they're toast. They're toast. I don't know, Buffalo, do they feel like the Rams in the 70s just a little bit, except they've got the quarterback? They just feel like if it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. But they've got contract issues, and they made some foolish mistakes. I think they thought they were close, but I think the players they invested in, I think the Rams got Von Miller's last great year, and I think it would have been great to bring Von Miller back for a real modest contract after the Super Bowl run, because we were going to run it back and everything. But Buffalo came in with that massive offer and Thank goodness they did, right? Thank goodness they did, because you don't want any of that train wreck. Bill, Packers had it in the palm of their hands, blew it. Yeah, so did their defensive backs, right? Dropping those picks. It killed me. It killed me watching that game. And yeah, I'm thrilled. I mean, and they're playing tough too, right? They're putting some physical hurt on Frisco. You know, everyone was hating on the Packers defense all year. And from what I looked at during the offseason going into this year, I was kind of disappointed not disappointed, but kind of more impressed with with the Packer defense than I expected it to be. I didn't think it would be this good. But it was. I didn't think Rashawn Gary would bounce back. Kenny Clark, all these guys, and they did a great job. And they had it, right? They had it, and yeah, it kind of killed me. USA expat. The AFC has always been the other conference for me. Oh, that's so funny that you say that. Yeah, growing up as a Rams fan, yeah, the AFC always felt like the Confederacy, right? Like the American League was the Confederacy. I was a National League guy. I'm a NFC guy. Pro Bowls, when I did watch them, I was always rooting for the NFC. Baseball All-Star games, before they allowed them to end in ties, when I used to watch them, I was always rooting for the National League and stuff. Yeah, I would get burned in the 70s because the AFC was dominating the Super Bowl. That's funny that you say that. Steve Ramirez, I believe you're referring to what I mentioned was, yeah, Jordan Love, right? That last touch, that last throw, that last pick was exactly like Brett Favre. And for a guy playing his first full year as a starter, playing in only his second postseason game, you'll forgive him. You're going to give him the contract. But if this happens again, starts happening next year or starts happening in the postseason, then you got some concerns, because that was the part that always bugged me about Brett Favre. He just never, to me, he never matured. He never got better. Steve Ramirez, I heard today that Bass had been 9 for 9 in the fourth quarter this year. What a crusher, huh? What a crusher. But did you see Baker Mayfield? Did you see Baker Mayfield? Not Baker Mayfield. I'm sorry, Josh Allen go to him afterwards? Josh Allen, man, that's a guy you want to be your quarterback, right? You got to feel real good. Tampa Bay with Baker, Jared Goff in Detroit, Stafford in LA, and Allen there, Lamar Jackson. These guys are consummate leaders. Mahomes, these guys are leaders. And I don't know if Brock Purdy, he's going to need to get one under his belt or something, some more time under his belt. I don't know if he has that same kind of presence, but yeah, it's fun to watch a great quarterback, right? It's always fun to watch a great quarterback. This one came to me and they said, what do you think about Taylor Swift? And I thought, oh man, I think we've answered this one. This question came in. When I turn on a football game, I don't want to see Taylor Swift. I just don't. But to be fair to Taylor Swift, okay, I want to be pro Taylor Swift here a little bit. To be fair to her, I don't want to see her, but I also don't want to see The Rock. I don't want to see Eminem, and I don't want to see Snoop Dogg. The NFL has the best viewing product on the planet. And why it panders and insults its fan base with all these starstruck things, I don't know why. It doesn't get me excited. I don't care what they think. I don't think they're real fans. I think they have a modest interest. I think they like to be seen, and I don't care. And so, yeah, I don't like that. So, but to be fair to Taylor Swift, I can't stand the monologues and the spiels that The Rock does. They've had him at Ram games. I can't stand it. Eminem, whatever, and Snoop Dogg. I don't like it. I don't care. I saw the Fox preview yesterday. That was terrible. I turned it off. Let's get the game. I really don't care what they have to say. And then the thing is, I don't care what the stars have to say. And then the more latitude the game announcers and the commentators allow them, I don't care what the commentators have to say. I just want to watch the game. All right. I'd rather hear what you have to say. Anyway, Rams update. When we get into draft talk, keep in mind that free agency hits first, okay? I'm not trying to be pedantic here, but free agency hits first. You can put ink to paper on March 13th. A couple days earlier, agreements are going to be made, and we'll hear about that. But then after March 13th, you got that going on for about 7 weeks until the draft. So, we can play with the draft, and we will. I want us to play with the draft, have mock drafts. I want to see your mock drafts. I'll post them on my website and stuff. It'll be fun. And then, we're thinking about doing something here. I was talking to our sponsor. We're thinking about maybe doing a little contest to see who comes up with the best mock draft and giving a prize to it or something like that. It's fun. But during free agency, all the draft talk that we have now, free agency can change that, right? The needs we talk about now might be filled by the time we get to April 25th. So keep that in mind. But that's we're going to be doing a lot of that stuff. Speaking about the offseason and the draft, I love how Les Snead, besides not matching Von Miller's contract, I love how he's unemotional. And there was that statement that he says the Rams aren't going to go on a spending spree. It never seems like the Rams spend for the sake of spending. You know, they're not. Kroenke's got Steinbrenner type money, but maybe even more. But he never, like Steinbrenner, would just spend, and it never made any sense. You know, you don't bring Omar Marino to the Bronx, right? But he brought Omar Marino and Ken Griffey to the Bronx. You know, sometimes the Rams are a little cheap. You know, see backup quarterback, but they're not emotional, and I love that. I love it when you're not emotional. Of course, we all know the keys are Kevin Dotson for re-signing our own players. Kevin Dotson, Demarcus Robinson, Akilla Witherspoon. All these guys should get offers by the Rams, but they're also going to get offers from the league. You could see, even if the Akilla Witherspoon is like a blue-collar corner, there's value for him in the league. And I think I saw the spot track. I think I mentioned that they project him being worth 10 rocks a year for 2 years. So, and then Demarcus Robinson's played himself into a better contract. He should give 10% to Sean McVay. And then Kevin Dotson. Yeah, we know that. I hope we can get him just for $17 million, you know, and I hope it doesn't go up any higher in a bidding war, but he was fantastic. And we want to see those guys re-signed. You know, we've talked about things that are the needs of the Rams this offseason. And one, I've pushed cornerback first. We need a frontline corner. You know, go get Kool-Aid McKinstry or some of these guys that are out there in the draft, or even an edge player, right? You got to think about how you want to do that. What I haven't talked about is Bobby Brown. Now, Bobby Brown, that first year did nothing. Second year did a little. Yeah, he's had slow, steady improvement in 3 years. But now Bobby Brown is heading into the last year of his contract, and he's really the last. He's really the only, you know, fat guy, right, on the roster that can be a run stuffer, a legitimate guy, you know, that weighs 330. He's the only one on the Rams roster that can really do that. So as he heads into the last year of his contract, I have to believe the Rams will be in the market for another interior defender. You know, if Bobby Brown's just pedestrian, no one makes him an offer, he probably comes back. If he's good, then he's going to get another contract offer. So I have to believe the Rams are going to be in the market for another interior defender. Jonah Williams is a restricted free agent, but we know what he is. He's not an Ashawn Robinson or Bobby Brown type. And Laurel Murchison, he's not either. He's an unrestricted free agent. And so he's likely, I think, going to go look for other options so he can play more. I think the team is happy with Mr. Irrelevant. That was a nice score, last pick of the draft, DeJuan Johnson. But he's kind of light, right, considering where he plays on the line. And the Rams truly need that Bubba, that big, thick guy. So I'm not saying first rounder, but it's something they have to address given the roster and Brown's contract. And again, that's just more help for the conductor, and it's more help for AD. And you always want those guys to rotate in. It always seems like the Eagles are drafting those guys all the time, right? They should be drafting some secondary stuff, but just something to think about. Again, looking at those games, Texans, Ravens, Baltimore 34-10. I had taken Houston by 2 points. Lamar Jackson looks great. I will never argue or that he's a great passer, because I don't think he is. I think he's a good passer who's a great quarterback. And because he's a great quarterback, because he's smart and he works, he gets by with his arm. Not that his arm's not strong, but he's just not an elite passer. You just don't want to see him run. But here's the interesting thing. The less he ran this year, the better he became. And I think I go back to, I'm thinking of a column I wrote 20 years ago when the Eagles went to the playoffs, so the Super Bowl with Donovan McNabb. It was the first year he stopped running a whole lot, ran when necessary, ran on specific occasions, but it wasn't the key feature to the Eagles offense. And he had his best throwing year and passing year, and that was the year they went to the Super Bowl. And so Baltimore is going to be a tough out. They're just going to be a really tough out for anybody. But if anybody could do it, probably it would be the Chiefs. Packers 49ers, I'll say it again. Frisco was vulnerable. I think Brock Purdy was tough. I thought he was really tough on that last drive. Jawan Jennings, though, made some catches for him, man. Bailed Purdy out and stuff. But here's the funny thing. I don't think he's necessarily enough to get Frisco past Detroit, because if Green Bay can move the ball on Frisco, Detroit can. And again, don't sell short that interior offensive line with Ragnow, Gazgo, and then of course Sewell on the edge there on the right tackle spot for Detroit. And I'll say this: have you not? I know I've been. Well, I'm not disappointed, but I haven't been real impressed with the Packers or the 49ers pass rush. I was expecting something a little more dominant, right? And they got all the guys they signed. Chase Young's fool's gold, folks. People were talking about Chase Young coming to the Rams. I didn't want Chase Young. He wasn't producing in Washington. And really, what did we see from that 49er pass rush on Saturday night? Not a whole lot. And the Detroit has a better offense. So I'm curious to see what takes place in this game, because if it's a shootout and the quarterbacks are standing, then I'm going to go with Jared Goff. I'm going to go with Jared Goff in this one. But Jared Goff winning this game, going to the Super Bowl, and even winning the Super Bowl does not mean he's showing up the Rams. Okay, I get in my argument with my friend Tim Burns on this, who follows RamView. Tell you the truth, I like Jared Goff, but he's not even close to Matthew Stafford. I go back to the final drive in Super Bowl 56. No one to throw to except one guy. Everyone knows he's going to Cooper Kupp, and Matthew Stafford takes the Rams down, trailing in the Super Bowl. I know I have to keep talking about it, but it doesn't mean I don't like Goff. It's just that the Rams made the right trade, okay? And I hope Detroit wins the Super Bowl. I like Dan Campbell. I want to see all the mea culpas. Well, I guess we were wrong. The mea culpas on we were wrong about Dan Campbell, right? Buccaneers, Lions. I don't have any bitterness towards the Lions, right? And if it breaks down that way, yeah. I want Detroit. I want the Ravens, then kind of the Chiefs, but I just don't want Frisco to win the Super Bowl. Did you notice also in this Chiefs-Bills game how the KC defense just put the clamps on the Bills in the second half? And the Bills defense on the other side was looking kind of like the Rams offensive line in 2022. It's just all banged up. They didn't have enough to stop the Chiefs. So to me, it felt inevitable, and maybe it's not all Tyler Bass's fault. Josh Allen can only carry the Bills so far, and you can't control those injuries, and that's just what happened. But the Chiefs defense really put the clamps on them. And KC advances, and we'll talk about them on Wednesday. But Buffalo, as long as they have Josh Allen, they're going to be relevant, but the dude needs some help. I would say they keep Khalil Shakur. What a fifth-round gem out of Boise State in 2022. Still early in his contract. That's a good move. But it's time to move on from Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, right? I mean, Gabe Davis is hurt. He has big games, but he's inconsistent. And Stephon Diggs, here's the problem, though. They can't move on from Stephon Diggs. He's about to start a 4-year, 96 rock deal with 70 of it guaranteed. He's a 27 rock cap hit next year. A 27 rock cap hit. And all he looks like now is a glorified possession receiver. Can't go deep, right? He does make catches, but he makes those possession receiver catches, and he's already 30 years old. Man, that's just bad. That should be costing the Buffalo GM his job. And so should this. Von Miller played 15 snaps. They say he got 2 hurries. Okay. But the Von Miller cap hit for the next 4 seasons and his age is this. In 2024, Von Miller is going to be 35. His cap hit is 23 rocks. The year after that, in 2025, he's going to be 36 and it's 23 rocks. 2027, he's going to be 37 and it's 26 rocks. And the dead cap hit, if they cut him, is still $9 million in 2026. And his last year of his contract, which I don't think he'll see, he's at age 38. He's scheduled to make 32 rocks, and it's only a $2 million dead cap hit. He's appeared in 22 games in two seasons for the Bills. 22 games. He's only played 707 snaps, right? That's not a whole lot. He's got 8 sacks. All of them were last year, right? Thank you, Buffalo, for signing Von Miller, right? And that's your bane, man. That's your bane right now, because I don't know how you get around it. Miami is going to be ascending. I think if they're smart, I would move off Tua, but I don't know. That's just me. I think the Jets will eventually figure it out, and I feel like the Bills are going to be at a standstill. They'll always be relevant, but they just won't be able to get over the hump. And some of these contracts are going to kill them. They need to have a big draft and find some young, cheap talent. All right. I think we got it in there. Yeah, we got it in there. Cool. All right. Cool.
It was a stone groove, my man.
It was a stone groove, but we're not done yet. So on this date, in January 22nd, 2009, I like listing this stuff because the Rams in 2009 went 1-15. They hired on this day Pat Shurmur and Ken Flagioli as their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. That didn't work. On this day in 2021, the Rams hired Raheem Morris as defensive coordinator, and all God's children said amen, right? On this day in 2022, the Rams activated Eric Weddle from the practice squad, and we can all appreciate the work Eric Weddle did for us that postseason in 2022. Born on this day is the late, great Charles White in 1958, and former Rams safety Vince Newsom in 1961. So he is 63 years old today. Vince Newsom had a nice little career in the NFL. Tomorrow, January 23rd, is the 45th anniversary of Tom Mack's retirement. Tom Mack is a Hall of Fame left guard for the Rams, drafted 2nd overall out of Michigan in 1966. I think you guys know this. 11 Pro Bowls, Hall of Fame, 184 games, 176 starts. Think about this. From 1966 to 1974, and I say this because I make a big deal about the Lions' interior line with Ragnar at center, right? Think about this. From 1966 to 1974, 9 years, the Rams started Joe Schiavelli at right guard, Ken Iman at center, and Tom Mack at left guard. It's consistent. 9 years. 9 years, right? And in all of those years, with the exception of 1972, the Rams had winning records, right? In 67 and 69, they were in the playoffs. In 68, they were in double digits. They were 9-4-1 in 1970, but missed the playoffs. George Allen's last year. 8-5-1 in 71, 6-7-1, and then of course in 73, and then of course Chuck Knox came in, saw this offensive line, made sure John Williams was the starter at right tackle, got rid of Harry Shue, and then of course you had Charlie Cowan at left tackle ever since the arrival of Bob Brown in 68, and so the Rams were loaded. And then you have Lawrence McCutcheon run for 1,109 yards, and Jim Bertelsen run for 854 yards, and everything was off and set. But how awesome is that? Schiavelli, Einman, and Mack. That is awesome. Okay. On this day in 1997, the Rams hired Jerry Rome. I like to mention who was the OC before Mike Martz. And then on this day in 2012, I'm sorry, not on this day, January 23rd, 2012, the Rams hired defensive coordinator Greg Williams. But here's the interesting thing. He doesn't do anything in 2012 because a month after the Rams hire him, he's suspended indefinitely for his role in Bountygate with the Saints, right? And so he ends up getting reinstated, goes to Tennessee, but in January of 2014, in February of 2014, he gets rehired by the Rams, and he's with the Rams 2014, 2015, and 2016. He's the nasty guy when the Rams were doing Hard Knocks. He was just always upset, right? Happy birthday tomorrow to Pat Hayden. He turns 70. And then the interesting thing, I love looking at this stuff. January 23rd, 2000, NFC title game. Thank you, Ricky Prohl. Rams beat the Buccaneers 11-6. Exactly 22 years later, the Rams defeat the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay 30-27. Love of the gameplay. Matt Gay showing you what a kicker does in clutch situations, and Matthew Stafford being Matthew Stafford. All right. I think that just about does it. If we have other questions there, Steve Ramirez, what do you think L'Jarius Sneed's market going to look like? I think it's going to look pretty good. I think more and more as everything tends towards offense, I just think people are just looking for anybody and anybody who could help them in the back porch there. And I do think they're pretty good. I was encouraged by Sneed's comments regarding Foster. You know what? I didn't see it. Dotson. Okay, there you go. I wasn't sure who you're talking about there. I was fortunate. Oh, Steve Ramirez, you met Tom Mack. I heard he's a really nice guy. Is he that cool as people say? I heard he's a real good dude, and that's pretty cool. I did not know that, Steve. All right, guys. Any other questions? Cool. Hey, I got an audience today. It's the off season. You're still here. Thank you so much. Again, check us out on Spotify. Check out our sponsors, Kissler Law, and check out those books of mine on Amazon as we continue forward in this off season. God bless. Take care. We're going to be back. Thank you, Steve. Tom Mack was cool. We haven't confirmed. Legitimate reporter here. Steve Ramirez confirms Tom Mack was cool. All right. God bless, guys. Take care. Go Rams. And like and subscribe.